Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 2 of the Judge Chat Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. Today I have my friend Hatch. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, how's it going? So, like Colin said, I'm Hatch. I've been an official judge for Yu-Gi-Oh for about a year by now.
I think we started around about the same time, back in March, February of
both of our first events was that one regional.
Yeah, in the fucking elementary school.
Yeah, in that gymnasium that got to like 300 degrees. It was awful.
Yeah, it was. They paid us $7, and I think pizza was $8.
Yeah, it was rough.
Bad. Anyway.
But yeah, so I've been judging events at least for about a year, but I've been playing for a lot longer than that.
Yes, you have.
I've been playing for a pretty damn long time. And I was doing it when I was a kid too. I was like, it was the middle of it wasn't Rescue Cat format. It was like right after Rescue Cat format. I was literally like a child. I was like in elementary school, and I was figuring out how to play these decks.
Yeah. When it comes to game knowledge and just generic information about cards, I don't think there's many people who have a bigger plethora of knowledge. I think one of your favorite things to say whenever we're dueling for fun is, if I tell you X, I'll let you take it back. Something like that. Whenever I use an effect wrong or something like that, it always comes up. Never ceases to not happen.
Yeah, because it's like, especially with like when it's you or like other friends, I feel like when we're doing friendlies, it's all about like learning how the decks play and try to make like the optimal choice whenever possible. And even with decks that I don't personally play, a lot of times I can see, like, you probably should be making a different play. And I'll just be like, this is what I would have done, either after the match or, like you said, in the middle of the match, be like, hey, if I told you this part about, like, what this card does, I'll let you take back what you just did, because it wouldn't really make much sense if you knew that.
I remember we had one duel, I believe it was for the budget duel, or the budget tournament at our locals.
Dude, that one hard.
Yeah, that was good. You got first, I got second, just in case anyone's curious. What was it? I activated Silent Honor Arc to take one of your guys, and you're like, oh, that can only work on defense position monsters.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was only attack position monsters. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make Castel instead. It's like, that only works on attack position monsters, because it was a monster I booked. And I was just like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I'll make Light Dragon add Ignister and pop it then. We'll get rid of it's going away somehow,
We'll figure it out. Yeah. I do have a tool.
Yes. So that's why I thought you were the best person to talk about today's topic, which is extra deck size. So there's been a lot of people talking about either increasing the extra deck size because, they want access to more tools, or decreasing the extra deck size because, combo decks are just way too powerful, having every single extender they could want and having several flex spots. If we look at a deck like, Code Talkers, a deck that historically goes through at least 12 or 13 extra deck monsters before ending on a board of, a negate, an untargetable boss monster, several bounces, stuff like that. It really does feel like it just has everything and it just keeps going. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today. So what's your thoughts? Increase, decrease. Just start with that.
So personally, if my name was John Konami and I was in charge of the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game trademarked, I would just keep it at 15. I think 15 is a pretty fair number. I think the bigger problem, honestly, is I blame a lot of the problems with what people think is bad with the extra deck on Link 1 monsters. I think that just kind of inherently, like, if you give a deck a Link 1, it gives that deck so much build, like so many different ways to start its turns. And I think that's kind of the bigger problem. Yeah. Because if you look at a deck like, I think like the Punk decks are a pretty interesting example of this. There are like flex slots. There are cards that you do have like ability to tech in. There is room to play like the Double Zeus or whatever you want to. But overall, each card feels a lot more, like each decision feels a lot more intentional, I guess you could say. And each card feels like it has a very specific purpose. And that's why I personally like a lot about the extra deck. I like the fact that I feel like it's part of what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! As fun as it is, right? I like that we have a tool in the form of the extra deck where you can have removal options, negation, pretty much like anything you could ever need. as long as you have the tools in your hand to like access it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up the whole, like, Link 1s are a problem, because, you know, a lot of people, when they're talking about, you know, pet decks that they really like, decks that they want to see support for, and even from Konami's perspective, a lot of the answer is just, oh, give us a Link 1, you know? Look at Prank Kids. Prank Kids was around for quite a while, and it was just, you know, it was around, it was floating, it was a rogue deck, but it wasn't until they got Meow Meow Moo that the deck really started doing things, and it was bannably strong, because the deck was designed without a Link 1 in mind.
Yeah, and I think it really took it to like that next level when sorry, I got something in my throat. I think it really took it to like the next level where in the format where we did get Meow Meow Moo banned, because it was around for a while before that.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like offensively strong until we were able to fit stuff like Verte Anaconda and DP into the same deck as the Prank Kid shell and stuff like that. The adventure cards also helped with that, to make Prank Kid specifically as powerful as it was, but I think being able to like go Griffin Rider and then do your Prank Kid combo and then make a DPE after that was really what like took it above.
And let's not forget, we also strung Dagda in there to set Scythe. That was like the whole point of Verte DPs. Like,
yeah,
you could do Dagda Verte, but it wasn't until DP came out that it was actually good.
Exactly, yeah. And in some of those like pile decks that were around at the same time, like the 60 card base decks or whatever, a lot of those decks were playing Almirage because you could normal summon Sangan, and that was just your entire combo. You just had to link it off for Almirage, and you got what was it? It was that was it? No, I can't remember the name of the deck. Crusadia. It was that one Crusadia card where you just like summon it.
Yeah,
and it's a tuner, so you make Alka-Fibrax and you just go off.
Yeah, Hulk dot deck was such an annoying format.
Don't you love Yu-Gi-Oh when you just like have one starter card and then you get like 3 negates and or like 2 negates and an extra deck lock? Man, that was a really good format.
Oh god, yeah, that was a bad format. See, okay, this is getting off into a tangent, but the format before the Adventure Engine came out, it was like a solid 2-week span where it was after the Proto span, but before Adventure came out, and it was nirvana for me. Like, it is a format that I think, looking back on, people would play to the extent they play Hat format. Maybe not Edison, but Hat format definitely, because you had awesome decks. You had Sword Soul was very fair, Branded Despia was still a thing. That was the format that I took Cyber's Eldritch to a Remote Duel YCS, and I bubbled, but I did get top 100. That was such a fun format for me, but that's getting off into a tangent, like I said.
No, that's all good. And I'd be down to explore that a little bit more at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
But go back to the whole extract bit. I really wanted to like expand upon the reason exactly why I like the extra deck. And I think a good starting point for what I like about the extra deck is actually Hat format. Because you look at the decks in Hat format, and most of them are just like rank 4 decks, right? You got your 101s, you might have like a Volval Chain, a Daigusa Emerald, stuff like that. But even then, there are like choices you do have to make with those rank 4 packages. Like there are more than 15 cards you want to play, even in like a deck that only makes rank 4 monsters.
Right.
And that's completely discounting that a deck like Infernity, which wants to play Leviers to do like continue its combo extension. It wants to play multiple Diamond Dire Wolves just to clear its own board so it can keep comboing off. It wants to play multiple Exton Knight so we can just like try and really have a really good game plan going second in games 2 and 3. Much like how we play like multiple Zeus right now, but for slightly different reasons, right?
Right.
And they have a deck like Sylvans, which is, you know, you have the ability to make rank 3s, rank 7s, rank 8s, Synchro 8s. You can make Leo in that deck. Like there are so many different options in that deck, and they all have very different specific edge case scenarios. Besides like 2 or 3 specific cards that you pretty much always go into. Like in Sylvans, you pretty much always go into Felgrand. You pretty much always go into Draco Sack. But like the other ones, you have like there are real reasons to play those cards, and there's also a good case for other cards to be in those same exact slots.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like, getting back to, like, today, right, like, modern advanced Yu-Gi-Oh! One of the arguments that goes against decreasing the extra deck size specifically is just the fact that Kashtira is now a deck, you know, with Unicorn and, Diabolus, the Mind Hacker, right? They can snipe cards out of your extra deck. So if you decrease the extra deck size, then they have, that deck specifically just has a 10 times easier in every matchup. Because you can look at the extra deck, you can see, okay, they only have one copy of, you know, a very critical piece because they can't afford to play two because they need two or three other cards, right? You just snipe that out of your opponent's deck and you probably just win the game. So then those people are then going, well, then you should increase the extra deck size because then, you know, you can afford to play multiple copies of your really powerful combo extenders. Let's go with Predaplants, right? The Ambula Melodies, the level 5 fusion that is critical to the deck. You have to play 2 in this format if you want to have your combos resolve going second. And it just creates this whole like loop of they should increase it because of this. Well, that's the exact same reason they should decrease it. And it's a very it's a circular argument that just keeps going, and it makes me laugh every time.
It is really funny, especially when you read it on Twitter, because nobody knows what they're saying.
Exactly.
Like I said before, I think 15 is like pretty much the perfect number. Because I feel like pretty much in every format, and I kind of touched on it with the hat example, but every format, pretty much like Edison onwards, like you do have to make extra deck decisions. Like you do have to pick which cards you don't want to play, unless you're playing a deck like Glad Beast in Edison format where you have 3 cards you ever summon and that's it.
See, one interesting thing that I'm thinking about right now as we're talking about this is not something I thought of beforehand and have written down, is the fact that a lot of people forget you can side deck extra deck monsters. So I wonder if maybe we're going to get to a point where the side deck just becomes, you know, a smoke screen. So, you know, you're playing 1 or 2 like, let's say like the Predaplant example, right? I'm only playing 1 Ambula Melodies because I really need those extra spaces to counter other decks. I run into Kashtira, they snipe out my Melodies, game 2 and 3, I board in a second one. I think it'd be incredibly funny. I don't think people are going to be that down bad to have more copies and more flex spots for their extra deck. Because there are times where I'm playing a deck and I'm playing against a specific matchup and like, god damn, I wish I had Abyss Dweller. Or I wish I had like Sanaphon the Sky Prison. Or just some kind of very powerful extra deck monster that is good in one matchup but is absolutely unnecessary in 90% of the other matchups.
Yeah, for sure. I actually ran myself running into that situation with Tyrmans over the last couple of formats, actually, because there were probably like 18 different cards I wanted in my extra deck, and at some points during them, I sided in like Cowboy, or I sided in Abyss Dweller before it was a Shizu Tyrman format, because there was just like, you know, most of the time, game 1 going first, you would make Redoer, and it's like, fine. But if you know you're playing into the mirror match, you want to make that Dweller, right?
Yeah. Redoer is almost actively worse for you. Because
there's an argument for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's no, I do think, I don't think it's Kashtira specifically that'll make it happen. For some decks, I might, but I think as we get more cards that are like pretty matchup specific or like edge case specific for decks that already have all 15 slots, I think we'll see more and more instances of people citing in those extra deck cards.
Yeah, and I think one thing maybe stopping us from doing that is just the fact that Konami doesn't really seem to print a lot of generically good cards like Abyss Dweller. You know, it's like
they've definitely stopped recently because they learned their lesson.
Yeah, they have. Like, you know, and I can already see comments, you know, saying, "Oh, you know, Kashtira Arise Heart is a generic rank 7 Macrocosmos," and yes, it is. However, have you read the card's other text? It is so good in Kashtira, it almost prevents itself from being played in anything else, because it is 3 materials. There's not a lot of decks that I know of that can put 3 level 7 monsters on the board.
I can think of one. It's called Dragon Ruler.
Dragon Ruler is one, yes, but I think we'll be dead in the ground before we see any more than one copy of each of the rulers.
That's fair. If I was John Konami, I would unban all of them. I just don't care. I think we've actually had that conversation before.
We probably have.
We might have. But yeah, no, I think 15 is a very fair number. I don't think it really needs to increase. I don't think it needs to decrease either.
Yeah, so for like historical records, you know, if people want to look this up, I'll say them the time. The extra deck was originally unlimited because it was the fusion deck, right? They just let us play as many fusions as we want. And then in 2006, I believe it was a German upper deck event, somebody brought a deck of like 340 fusion monsters. And upper deck decided, okay, this is ridiculous. We're going to limit it, and it was limited to 15, and ever since then it has been 15 cards in the extra deck. And I do agree with you. I think, it's a very fair number. It works really well, especially since it matches sideboard. It's very easy for people to remember how many cards go in each deck. But also, it's at this point, it's just so storied. I don't think Konami is going to change it unless there's a master rule that reflects it, right? And I do think we are almost overdue for a new master rule revision. I do not think we're going to get it for another year or so. But yeah, long and the short, I don't think they're going to change it. But a lot of people have been arguing about increasing, decreasing, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. So
for sure.
I think that it's one of those arguments that people are going to have for as long as we have the absolutely dog shit game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That for some reason we all continue to play. But I'm very interested to see what the viewers have and what their opinions are in the comments below. So thank you guys for listening. Have a good day, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Before we go, Hatch, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
Oh, sure. So I actually stream on Twitch as an anime man. You can find me on twitch.tv/h4tch_ch. I repeat that, twitch.tv/h4tch_ch. Short for channel, because it's the whole VTuber bit.
Yeah, don't worry.
I also do have a YouTuber channel where I'm trying to edit videos together, but man, am I slow as hell at it. So it's coming out eventually. Soon TM for the video is where we're at.
All right.
But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys.
Yep. Have a good one.